Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. My guest is David Mills. David, I'm really excited about having you on this show. We're going to have a great conversation. But before we get started, I got little bit of housekeeping I have to do. First thing I want to say is thanks so much for watching Foresight TV. I know that Foresight is not a place for everybody. Once in a while, I hear complaints that we are too hard on the industry. But we're only too hard on the industry because we want the industry to get better. We're a huge fan of the industry. We love what you do. It's one of the reasons I love my own critics. So if you come back and say, you are doing something wrong, I'm glad to take that as well. So I will take the medicine as well as dishing it out. I am super glad for you to be here. I'd love to hear from you. If you are doing something cool, unique, you should be a guest on Foresight TV. And the other thing I'd love to hear about is if there are things that you think we should be talking about. In addition to Foresight TV, we do so much other great content. We have LinkedIn posts. We've got Tech Tuesday. The most impactful thing we do, honestly, is the Foresight website where we publish new leadership content every day. It's free. It's easy to subscribe to. There's a QR code up on the screen, and there's also a link in the comments. So just pull out your phone, scan that, put your name and email address in, and we are good to go. One more thing I want to talk about before we get on with the show is that we have launched a new premium product called Practical Passionate Leadership. It's really a way of going back to my roots, which is being focused on the frontline staff and creating work environments where people love coming to work every day. The challenge is that everybody wants to create that kind of a workplace. It's really hard to do. People talk about big ideas, and what leaders really need, is to know behaviors that they can do to make other people love them. And so a couple times a month, we put out real easy to do leadership things that you can do with your team, where the team will like you as a leader better, like your organization better, be more aligned with the mission, and they will love coming to work each day. Again, QR's code up there if you want to take a look. It's hosted on Substack, and I would love to have you be a part of that. Now, on with the show. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. David, we made it. Just for those of you who are watching, we actually are recording this in advance because of some schedule conflict, and we've been panicking for the last couple hours because Google Cloud had this massive outage, and it wiped out StreamYard. We couldn't get on, and we were and we were blessed. We were on Zoom trying to figure out how to do recording there, and it wasn't working the way we wanted. We tried StreamYard one more time, and here we are, ready to go. Poor Jada, who manages the show, who's behind the screen, she's been the one who's actually been in panic mode for the last 3 hours. I've only been in panic mode for about 2 minutes. And I always knew that Jada would take care of it. So, David, thanks very much for joining me. Let's actually start by talking about who you are.
Okay. I'm David Mills. I'm the president and C.O.O. of AgeWell Solvere Living. We are a regionally based senior living company with about 35 communities-ish because we change daily. We may be 80 before the end of the year. We may be 70 before the end of the year, but we're one of the fastest growing senior living companies out there right now.
And so tell me your story. How did you get into this? How did you become the CEO of this company? How did you get into this crazy senior living business?
So this is a little longer story, but I'll give it to you. I had no want and desire to be in the senior living business. I never even thought about it. My goal in life was to be a better looking Bobby Flay, a little shorter, but better looking. And I'm a chef by trade with a finance degree. I went to college to wrestle and to learn how to read, and ended up going into into business, and I ran restaurants, did a few things like that, had a degree in nutritional dietetics and finance. So ended up going to work in the restaurant business, ran through the restaurant business, ended up as a chef for Marriott, corporate chef for Marriott. Dad got sick somewhere around the time I'm turning 29 or 30. And I reached out to some friends, Greg Leonard and a couple of people back in the Marriott senior living game. And most people didn't know Marriott had senior living back then. And I turned around and asked for, can you take care of my father? Yeah. And they took care of my father. And 3 days later, I'm on a plane to DC to interview for the corporate chef for Marriott Senior Living and a regional food and beverage guy. That turned into, being an executive director 7 years later and, running a great building in Texas and running a couple others. And then I turned around a company called Bell Senior Living, and it made some money after a while, and they sold it. And I was looking for the next opportunity, and I knew my business partners back from the Marriott days, and they said, you want to come in and run this new thing, AgeWell Living, with us? And I said, yeah, let's try it. So it took off. It did a great job. We built some buildings in Atlanta called Celebration Village. They made a lot of money for a lot of people, and 450 residents at one and 250 in the other, and they both did great. So even during COVID.
I love those stories. I know there are a number of people who have had a lot of people who really struggle. I mean, everybody struggled, right? But from an economic standpoint, I know some people did great and some others not so much. So as I look at your company, do you have sort of like a secret sauce? I mean, what's the what's the formula? I hope it's not a secret that you won't share, but what's your secret sauce?
Well, a couple things. We always talk about passion. I go back to my Marriott roots of, taking care of the team members. They're the number one person that needs to be taken care of, because boy, how many of us want to do what they do all the time? I mean, I was a CNA for a while, and boy, it's a tough job. I've been obviously a dishwasher many times in my career, and and that's a tough job. And, you clean carpets, and that's a tough job. So you gotta thank everybody for doing what they do for you. I mean, we live by a couple rules. One of them is, it's called LIGHT. It goes by loyalty to each other, not loyalty to the overall company, loyalty to each other, whoever you're taking care of. Integrity. That's the reason I hire. I hire for integrity now. Someone that's going to do what they say they're going to do, and we do it too. We stay constant on our promise. Transparency, tell everybody what's going on. If we're in the middle of something, we tell them what we're doing. And then entrepreneurial. I tell a story to people. 100 years ago, I had a lady working for me named Miss Emma up in one of my Marriotts, and she couldn't make. I'm sitting there with the guy with suits, which I have one on now, but I'm sitting there with the guy's suits. I'm in chef whites, and Miss Emma's making club sandwiches, and all of a sudden they're looking at her going, well, she does not make it the club sandwiches fast. We can't keep up with it. What's going on? I went over to her and asked her, what do you need? She goes, I don't have any toasters. The toasters aren't working. Ran to the pantry, grabbed her toasters, put the 2 toasters out. All of a sudden she's back to Miss Emma. So it's those kind of things. It's called listening to your staff. Your staff are smarter than you are. Just remember that the whole way through. I am 100%, and all of my home team office members are 100% servants to the people in the field. And that's where we forget. A lot of times we walk in, I've heard of companies out there, and you said I was blunt, and I am. I've heard of companies out there that walk in and they have to do a lineup when they walk in. So they walk in and the team lines up for them and takes care of them. It's not that's not what this is about. Our job is to go, if I go to a building, I come in with a bag of bagels, I come in with something, and I go, let's sit down and enjoy each other. That's where the culture starts.
Oh man, you are speaking my language. I one of the things that that really frustrates me, and it's why we started this new product that we're off, this premium product, to help people learn how to behave like that. I mean, you bring in bagels and other things, right? It seems so obvious, and yet it happens so rarely. But what's fascinating to me is uh, I see a lot of senior living leaders who are really focused on trying to create better quality of life for regionals, for executive directors, perhaps for sales people. But when it comes to the front line, in most cases,
Right.
they just sort of assume that they're not, they're almost disposable. And so I love the story about the toasters, right? Because what you're doing is you're listening to those frontline people, and those are the people who are interacting with your family members and your residents, and they become really the face of your community much more so than anybody else. So I love that.
Yep. And we do the Great Place to Work like everybody else does, but we scored outrageously high this year, and we got 80+% of our team went with it. And part of it is just we're talking about it with them. We're asking them for the favors. We're doing whatever we need to for them. So, I think a lot of it's communication. We keep things from people that should know exactly what's going on. We got to stop doing that. We got to, the teams aren't going to work against you if they're part of you.
Yeah.
It just I come from a place where I wash dishes. A lot of people didn't. So coming from that place, I used to wash dishes, and people would say, well, they or them or they or them. And I'd be like, no, that goal is, as you go through your career and through your life, you'll be a they or them. It's a we. It's 100% a we. Sorry, I'm preaching, but it's in the blood.
No, I absolutely, you can preach all day long on this stuff, because I think this is so important. I do believe, there's all this talk about a shortage of frontline workers in senior living. And I'm not saying it's not a real problem, right? It is. A lot of companies are really, really struggling. But my thesis is that if we create great places to work for our frontline people, it'll be Taco Bell and McDonald's and Starbucks that are struggling to get frontline people. And we'll have people lined up wanting to work for our communities, because they know that they look forward to going to work. They look forward to being with their work colleagues. They look forward to being residents. They look forward to families, and they have stories to tell. And that's our opportunity. So I love this.
Well, and Stephen, you have to have a heart. I mean, this is a career that, you can't do this without a heart. I like to say my daughter started in it last year, and she grew up in it. So she's 23 years old, and she grew up in it. She was home the other day, and I said to her, in sales in one of the buildings, and I said to her, so what do you think? What's going on? She goes, I love it. She goes, I don't push. I suggest to people, I don't push them to get in. They don't need to be in by the end of the month. I talk to the whole staff when I'm going to do something. I walk around. And again, she grew up in it. When I've been in it for 30 years, she's 23. She grew up playing with my residents and in my buildings when I was an executive director. So my point is, I think that you have the heart for the business. You couldn't have the training, but you have the heart. So, and it's a choosing business. You're choosing for this business, by somebody greater than us, I'd say.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. So as you look at, do you have major initiatives you're working on? Where do you see yourselves and your organization going in, say, the next 5 years? And I'm gonna make this I should really only ask one question at a time, but the other part of it that I want to throw in, because I think it's directly related, is there's a lot of talk about baby boomers wanting different things. I think it's a really tough problem, because I'm a baby boomer. I'm right smack dab in the middle.
Yep.
And I got to tell you, I have no idea what I want. I want to pretend like I'm not growing old. That's what I want.
Well, I have bought senior living three times. Okay. For personal reasons. The first time was my father when he got sick. The second time, 20 years later, was for my mother when she got sick. And then I have an aunt that I helped with senior living, because she didn't have anybody around to do it. And then all of the times that we've done it in the past. And my big push is always the push it always has been. If you play it right, it becomes the college campus that you get as the second time in your life, where you're around people your age. And some people don't want to be around cranky people. You don't give that kind of environment. You keep people energized. You make sure the food is good. You make sure the lifestyles are where they should be. and you're just a guider. You don't have to 100% participate in all that lifestyles that are going on. You need to just make sure that's a good environment to make that happen. If they want to play mahjong or they want to play cards, make sure there's a room with the stuff in it that needs to be done. So to answer your question, who wouldn't go back to college if you had a choice, right? Without the school. I mean, I would. I mean, those were great 4 years of time. And this is a similar thing. You have similar interests, similar things going on. I see people that should have came in 3 years ago. And I know that doesn't sound right, but they blossom under our environment. And I just think I'm still a winner. I saw my mom, who wasn't doing good at the time, move in, get another 2.5 years of good, and then a year and a half of bad. But she got another 2.5 years where 5 ladies hung out together and they did everything together. And she got that extra 2.5 years because of that. Because if she would have sat in her apartment, she would have been done. So and I see this all the time with our residents and family members.
Okay, so I got to tell you, I'm in love with you as a leader. Let me tell you why. Because you're a great storyteller. And it's the greatest opportunity that we have is to tell these stories like you just told about your mom. And we're not doing a very good job of that. And when we tell those stories, it becomes so compelling. I just got back last evening from Mary Furlong's Tech Longevity Age Tech Conference in Berkeley. And I was struck again by how much people just like each other. And people, it's like being in college and speed dating, and everybody's competing for money and access to investors and looking for distribution strategies, but everybody is nice and they're friendly and they're talking to each other and want to meet new people, and everybody's passionate. And that's what senior living should be like, right?
It should be. My point being is and you're going to find this more and more because people are looking at pure cash. You got to be in it for the right reason. Cash is 1/3 of the thing. You're taking care of your residents, taking care of your team members. Those are things that have to be, that the ownership taking care of. It's got to be there, because you won't have no mission, no money, no mission per se. But if you don't take care of the other two, you're not going to have it anyways, because people won't show up for your product. So we're a customer service entity. We're a customer service company. We take care of people for a living. That's what we do. But if we don't stay customer service oriented, we're worthless.
Yep. So do you think boomers are going to be different or not?
I think boomers are going to want a couple different things. Some of the shoehorn apartments are going to be an issue for boomers, because they're not going to want that. We better get up and running on our technology more than what we have presently. And what I mean by that is, you go in buildings and you can't turn the TV on because you don't have enough voice over IP and video over IP and all that. We're streaming like crazy. So these buildings that were built in 1994 that don't have enough bandwidth, and you didn't put your money into that, but you put it into color of the flooring, you're going to stop a bunch of us. So that's a big push for me right now, is if I find a building that doesn't have enough bandwidth, I'm pushing for that, because we do a lot of our life through screens right now. Look at you and me. Instead of me flying to you or you flying to me, we're on a video chat. We're talking to each other. We're not running 100 times on a plane right now to each other. We are in the big meetings and stuff, but this is how we do what we do. 70-80% of our meetings this way right now.
Oh, that's right. I mean, I have days where I'm on Zoom or, team calls for 6-7 hours a day. And, it's not as good as in person for sure, but it's super efficient. And I remember back when we first had COVID and people would really hate the screen on. That seems to have passed. And I was using Zoom a lot even before that, because I have a remote organization. But you're absolutely right. So talk to me a little bit about technology and what you're doing.
So we've done a couple things. First of all, we're actually my business partner is a little older. He's about God, what is he? 20 years older than I am. One of my business partners. And he's pushing heavily for us to drive towards AI. So we have started to run classes and lessons in use of AI for ourselves, because I know that I'm putting my KPIs in AI now and saying, tell me what I have to ask. I can read them, but I also tell me what I can, what happened in this? What should I be asking this executive director or this RVP, regional vice president? What should I be doing? And so we've gone that way. We're also messing right now with a company that we've enjoyed with Amba, which is, the sensory for people down. But the real issue with Amba is a healthcare professional, and I'm not doing a site thing for them or whatever, but a healthcare professional will actually view each resident every 24 hours. So if something's going on, and we've caught in our test site, we've caught 5 or 6 issues already, and that have saved and extended someone's time with us. And even in our memory cares, it's worked. So we're implementing in a multitude of places. We've talked to our REITs, we've talked to our investment groups and said, hey, we'd love to go with this. I'm not going to say the secret of why I chose it, because I don't want the rest of the world to jump on it before I got it done. But there's reasons that are cost effective to it also.
Yeah, well, I actually know what those reasons are, because they were at the conference I was at the last couple of days, and I spent time with them. They told me that they're working with you guys, and I told them I was going to be talking to you. So I actually, it's one of the products that I came away from really excited about.
NOI good numbers. It's worked so far for us. I don't know if it's going to work, when it gets big in the stuff, and I don't know what levels of care, but in memory care and in assisted, it's been great. So I'm, there's other ones I would choose. Don't get me wrong. There's things that people are working on. I mean, I have a son who works for AccuShield, and I'm doing my whole family. That's not what I did, but works for AccuShield, and he's got some technology right now for facial recognition for memory care that I thought was really interesting. So, I'm pushing to be the first one for that too. I just think we're going to get ramped up over. I was in buildings today. I was walking through some buildings today, and they had no real technology stuff, because that was one of my questions on my list to ask. And it made me think that, we gotta get ahead of this.
Yeah, and I would just say that I applaud you for AI. I use AI every day. It's like having it's like having a fresh college grad that you can ask to do things, or you can bounce things off of. And they do so many tasks. I'm working on some financial reconciliation stuff, and I dumped a bunch of stuff into AI and said, okay, go in and categorize all this stuff.
Speeds up everything.
It's done, right? So that's really good.
We had another class like last week where we were learning, and he put everything in. One of our Rich Gordon, one of our chief strategy officer, was had the stuff up on the screen, and I'd use it for one thing. He started doing other things. All of a sudden, we're getting, within seconds, you have everything you've asked for. It's just, it's like having an administrative assistant without having an administrative assistant. You can, 10 hours worth of work is now 14 seconds. It's just, if you know what to ask.
And that's really the challenge, is knowing what to ask is the hard part. Everybody starts out with real simple requests, and it gets really frustrating. One of the things I use things for going to be more on the sort of the supplier side than on an operator side. But maybe there is that when I meet people at conferences, everything goes into AI immediately. I take a picture of their badge or their card, dictate some notes in it, and so. I've already, from my conference yesterday, downloaded the spreadsheet with the contacts. I've still got to do some fine tuning on it, but I don't forget things because I've dictated all this stuff. I've got all the it just makes life so much easier. And it feels complex, but it actually reduces complexity.
It does. I think old farts like you and I are going to be able to be more productive longer if we want to be, which I think a good thing, because to your point, with our wisdom also goes some speed.
That's right. So there's still this big struggle in the industry. A couple of big struggles I see in the industry. The first one is we can probably do this one real fast, and we'll go to the next one. But the first struggle that I see us having is we have a hard time trying to decide whether we're healthcare or lifestyle. I have a very specific opinion. I'll share that, but I'm going to ask you first.
I think ultimately, depending on the level of care, I think we're a healthcare company with a hospitality edge. And I don't think, we have to take care of people first. If somebody wanders off or elopes on you, nothing hospitality oriented goes into play. It's you're running to play we're running a healthcare company at that point. So I think ultimately we're a healthcare company, and I think we put a hospitality edge on it because that's what the customer's looking for. That's what the adult daughter's looking for. That's what everybody's looking for. They want to make sure mom is in the best possible place. And by walking into that healthcare room with the 2 beds side by side, it feels like mom's going in the home. When she walks into one of our apartments and she can put her own flair on it, we have things that are higher end in there. It doesn't feel bad to them.
Yeah, and that's the way I see it. I think that we're primarily a need-driven business, that people, even on independent living, when people move into independent living, they're anticipating having the potential for needing higher levels of care. I think that's even true in most CCRC environments. And I actually think that, there are actually some great lifestyle companies out there. You look at Margaritaville, you look at the Villages, at some of the Sun Cities, right? And they're actually doing this thing that we sort of tend to think is aspirational. So what do you think senior living is going to be like in 5 years? Actually, no, I'm going to do this differently. Tell me about the senior living. Tell me about the senior living community that you want to live in when you're 80. When you've sort of touched on this already, but I want to hear about the senior living that you want to live in when you get to be, 85, 70.
Well, no, if I make it to 85, I'll definitely be in somewhere. Aspirationally. Goal is, every day I wake up and I go work out, and every night I close the day trying to do something athletic, because I see that there's some comments out there that if you don't stretch and work out, you'll potentially cut 12 years off your life. There's always those things that still get in your way. And our roots are Masterpiece Living, which is a company that my business partner started a long time ago in 1999. And the roots still have stayed the same for me, social, intellectual, physical, and spiritual, trying to keep those things motivational. Hopefully my wife and I are still both healthy, and we move in together to enjoy other people at a good dinner, which hopefully is one of my buildings at the time, that I can make sure that the chef is still doing what he's supposed to do. Hopefully we're out walking the 4 miles we walk almost every day to we're together, so that, hopefully in the sun, because I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was always cold. So hopefully it's somewhere in Florida, because unlike everyone else, I like sweating. I think it's fun to sweat, but that's my old wrestler in me. I just don't feel like I'm working if that happens. So to answer your question, something that's got walking paths or walking areas or space around it for you to go outside, because I still think the sun is important to us. I think you got to get out there. I know you don't have to you can put a hat on, you can do all your stuff, but I think that you need to get out and see it, because that's what makes you shine. And then things that keep me challenged. I think we need to be challenged. I see my residents, and this is the funniest thing, the last thing to go in a resident is their competitive edge. I think they want to win at cards. They want to win at almost everything you can think of. So I think that competitive edge stays with you a long time. Does that may answer your question?
It does. So I want to talk for just the last couple of minutes about purpose, because I think it's one of the things we actually are not tapping into enough. So Ken Dykewald, who came up with the term AgeWell, who's become a friend of mine. He did a keynote on Tuesday, I guess. And he told this really great story. I'm going to give you the highlights, because I don't have the details on it. I need to get it, because I'm going to add it to my repertoire. But how Harrison Ford, he followed Harrison Ford on stage someplace. and Harrison Ford, who's really big in sort of the, the ecology, environmental kinds of things. And he said, imagine that we had a group of young people who were out and willing to go out and plant, 100,000 trees to help the environment.
Right.
And Ken said, he said, I was sitting there and I was watching this, and he said, why didn't Harrison Ford get up and say, well, imagine that we have a bunch of 70-year-olds that go out and plant 1,000 trees in a day, right? Because and the other thing that Ken talked about was the average older person watches, I don't know, this will make your head explode in a bad way, 47 hours of TV a week.
Yep.
And think about what else they could, and they watch that TV because they're bored, because they don't have anything else to do. And so, do you have any thoughts on how we maybe make purposeful living a bigger part of senior living?
Yeah, well, first of all, a lot of us run to retirement, and everybody runs to retirement. And they're like, I'm going to retire. I was laughing the other day. My wife retired 2 weeks ago as a school teacher. And I've got a lieutenant colonel who's retired, who's over with his dog, and his wife who's retired, and they're all sitting outside. And I'm doing my 15 hours of work a day. I know I work a lot, and I'm sitting there looking at them. And I walk outside. I said, "What is your purpose going to be?" And I know what my wife's purpose is. It's keeping me moving forward. She does it all the time. But the other two I asked, and he said, "Well, I need to take a little bit of time to just enjoy myself, because I've worked for 65 years at that time. And I'm not looking for that retirement, because I think we have to have purpose. I think if without purpose, to your point, and my purpose right now is to achieve the best senior living company in the world. That's the goal. The goal is to do that and figure out what mistakes other people have made and not make them. If I make a mistake, fix it, and admit that I was wrong 94% of the time, but the 6% is what I'm going to live for. Does that make sense?
It does. I love that. David, I wish we could continue this conversation. We're going to have to do this again, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Hang on for just a second after we are off the air.
Thank you.